Navika, the bias has been evident for years. But there are two issues here. One on Twitter and the second on the radicalization or the hate speech of Sharjeel. Now, I've believed this, I've said this before, that a social media platform cannot, I repeat, cannot censor, ban, adjudicate, publish, alter, or editorialize. I have no issue when it remains a platform, i.e., does not control what trains come and go, but that's not the case anymore, is it? These platforms heavily censor what they please, ban what they don't like, and these are all subjective decisions based on ideology and political preferences. Any social media platform operating in India should have just one rule. Anything you post here is subject to Indian laws and can be acted upon never by us, but by Indian courts. Anything more is an instrument for control and prone to bias. It is that simple. Navika, and as far as Sharjeel Imam is concerned and the hate that people are saying, that is, as you know, Navika, I was banned from Twitter for 2 weeks because I just quoted a verse verbatim. It was considered as hate speech. Now they had to apologize and come back, otherwise there would have been millions of people protesting against Twitter. So was it hate or was it not? That is why I want to say, how open are we to discussing what really is hate and what isn't? So my thing is, what Sharjeel is saying, maybe millions of people are actually thinking that, but only he is the one who's actually said it out loud. There is nothing radical in him, because there is nothing called radicalization or radical Islam. It is the normal thing. If a Muslim reads, imbibes, memorizes, practices, preaches, extols a book that explicitly defines who is a believer or a non-believer, and has more than half of its verses asking for the destruction and annihilation of non-believers, polytheists, Jews, Christians, saying they are the worst of creatures, 98:6, never to be married with 2:21, they should be condemned to eternal roasting in hell, 456, that no other deity has the right to be worshipped except Allah, 4062. Does he become a radical Muslim? Now, if I were to tweet all these things that I have just said, would it be considered hate speech? This is why we need an open society where all these questions can be discussed. And I repeat, neither Kangana nor Sharjeel should ever be banned.
No.
But
my problem, you face the ban from Twitter, and आप जो बता रहे हैं वो आप बीती है. But I want to, I'm beating about graves,
I want to come to my
crematoriums. Are we going to now compete कि भाई US में ज़्यादा थी आपने दिखाई नहीं, इंडिया में उससे थोड़ी कम थी आप दिखा रहे हो. Are we really going to now have a competition on statistics of bodies being burnt in crematoriums or bodies being buried in graveyards in the United States? I don't even want to go that road, because that's terribly personally upsetting, especially in this period when most of us are losing people that we've loved, our friends, family. I don't want to go that road. But I want to ask you, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, criticism is fine. But in this case, the larger point that is being made is to associate the variant with India when the WHO hasn't done it. And, you are ready to give China the benefit of doubt, as Nupur Sharma just pointed out. You never call it the Chinese virus. The Congress party never does. But they're very happy to use the word Indian variant, Modi variant. And that's a tad unfair.
Yeah, good evening, Navika. I've been waiting very patiently for, 30 minutes now. So please give me a couple of minutes. There are 2 points, essentially. Number one on the toolkit and the other on the variant that I mentioned. On the first, Navika, it is absolutely vital to confirm the authenticity of this so-called Congress toolkit, because quite simply, it is chapter and verse, for want of a better phrase, a call to arms against the state, its organs, its people. It is evil. It is vile. Its directives can only be written by a psychopath who is playing not only with lives, but also with deaths upon people, is wishing deaths upon people by saving beds for others. This is the kind of book Goebbels would have loved to write a foreword for. But again, I repeat, BJP must produce irrefutable proof that this document is authentic. Remember, Navika, the farmers' protest toolkit was considered genuine because it was outed by mistake by one of its enablers and users, Greta, and others who had produced it were caught editing it live. And remember that the Kerala Congress wing had tweeted verbatim what was advised in that toolkit, including quotes. So there was no ambiguity about its bona fide nature. Here, it is the BJP that has alleged this toolkit to be drafted by the Congress, and so proof must be produced by BJP. And indirect attributions don't count, I'm afraid, like what many are doing, finding old tweets by compromised journalists and dynasty slaves who had used the phrases that the toolkit speaks of, like Kum being a super spreader, the virus being a Modi strain, etc. Well, a counterpoint to that, speaking objectively, is that the toolkit could have been written retrospectively after cleverly mining through all those tweets. Therefore, that indirect evidence doesn't count. Navika, as I said, this toolkit has in it enough material to be considered under charges of multiple criminal offences, sedition, treachery, and even culpable homicide, just to name a few. It all hinges on finding out the mechanic of this toolkit. Now to point number 2, very brief. Navika, personally, as long as there are no double standards, I don't mind diseases or pathogens being named after cities and countries. There have always been German measles, Japanese encephalitis virus, West Nile virus, Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome. We had New Delhi.
The Spanish flu.
Yes, but even though it didn't originate in Spain, but that was the colonial UK doing. But you're right, Spanish flu. The problem comes when there is double standard. So same WHO that doesn't mind calling a beta-lactamase isolated from Delhi as New Delhi beta-lactamase, NDM1, is quivering in its pants when it comes to calling it Wuhan virus. So I have called UK variant, South African variant, Indian double mutant, but I call it Indian double mutant of the Chinese virus. So I think let's be clear. I don't mind a virus being a mutant being called an Indian mutant or a Bengal mutant or South African or Danish mutant or UK mutant. But the problem comes with this toolkit that they're calling it Modi mutant, Modi virus. And so I repeat, the authenticity has to be confirmed, and BJP has alleged that this toolkit has been drafted by the Congress. It should have by now, it is evening, about the whole day has gone, it should have produced at least some semblance of proof that it is indeed drafted by the Congress. I'm amazed that is not yet.
But I am sure, Dr. Ranganathan, that we must also today ask those who claim to be the life givers, to be the providers, as to what are their responsibilities to the larger cause and why they can't pause an agitation which is clearly established through data, clearly leading to a spike in cases. And now this is established by going to those very villages and speaking to those very villagers in whose name these Kisan Netas are carrying forward, supposedly, their great crusade.
Yes, good evening, Rahul. First of all, congratulations to you and your whole Times Now team for this very important data analysis. I think this was missing, and it's high time that somebody did it, and congratulations that you've done it. Look, Rahul, there is little doubt that Punjab is the state to have suffered the second wave first up. Now, why would that be? Why is it only Punjab that suffered it first up? In Punjab, it began around February 26th. I'm talking when the slope really shifts up. In Madhya Pradesh, a week after that, around March 1st. In Chhattisgarh, a week after that, around March 10th or so. In Maharashtra, the second wave began around April 1st, same as Delhi, a whole month after Punjab. Thing is, according to me at least, it's not possible to say that Punjab is responsible for the second wave all over it. We simply don't have the contact tracing data. Also remember that there were travel restrictions in those months and there wasn't much movement of people. I think every state began to experience its own second wave, some earlier than others, some later. The virus had become entrenched in every state, especially after, because of the prolonged lockdowns and after the first wave, and entered its second wave in its cycle. Maharashtra and Delhi were comparatively very high to begin with, and so they have suffered the most in the second wave. The localized spread theory, Rahul, is bolstered by the fact that Maharashtra has the preponderance of the Indian mutant, whereas Punjab and Delhi have majorly the UK mutant. If one state was responsible for a pan-India spread, we'd have seen majorly just one mutant, and we don't see that. Waves result through multiple factors: climate, travel, mutations, and super spreader events, through public gatherings, social, political, or religious. And all these gatherings were occurring with gay abandon in every state, in Punjab especially, because of the illegal farmer protest. National Centre for Disease Control has confirmed that Punjab and Delhi have been wrecked majorly by the UK mutant. There is no doubt that the farmer protest contributed to the virus spread. As to who is responsible, all those who violated the COVID norms obviously are. All those who wanted the illegal protest to continue and still do are too. All those who did not act to dismantle the protest are as well. But above all, Rahul, there is one name. ex-Chief Justice of India, Bobde. I hold him responsible. If the Madras High Court can rightly blame the EC for dereliction of duty, why should Justice Bobde be spared? He shouldn't be.